IfSimply makes it really easy. If you already have an idea, that's great. But if you don't, a lot of people will sign up, they'll get in, and then we have a lot of free resources that guide them along the way about how to choose a topic, how to create the content.
This is Steve Atwell, and you're listening to Education Hackers. Today we have Keith-Griffis on the show. He is an online course and digital product expert who helps bloggers, marketers, and podcasters create successful information products. He is co-founder of the membership platform IfSimply.com that makes it easy to create and launch your own membership site in 5 minutes. So Keith, what's this about you singing into a carrot? You like to karaoke?
Yes, absolutely. We had a friend who did a parody of the song Frozen, singing into a carrot for a local farm. So she was actually a Broadway singer previously, one of my wife's friends who is trying to promote the organic and local farming, I should say. So we're big into healthy eating around here. So that's what we try to keep promoting, and that was one of the ways that they were doing it.
That's a good thing. I'm totally into natural, healthy foods. My uncle, who's just over 90 now, he still grows his own vegetables in the back garden. So, I'm totally into healthy stuff. That's good. That's excellent. Is that how you relax when you're not working on your business? I hear your son is learning to speak.
He is, yes. He's almost 20 months old now, so he's picking up on everything. And in fact, it seems like every day he learns 10 or 15 new words. So it's amazing. So I spend a lot of time with the family. That's the reason we all do this, or at least that's my driving force that kind of keeps me moving every step forward. No matter what happens, it's always to get really more quality time with my son, my wife, and he is hilarious. So he keeps me moving every day.
My daughter's 19 now. And when they're young, they're very nice and they're very cute and they're very cuddly. So enjoy that time while you can. And, when they get to be teenagers, it's the teen terror years. But some things I think that they should learn very early on is, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. And if that gets ingrained into them, by the time they're teenagers, they may turn out okay. So that's my little bit of advice.
No, that's good. Me and my brother my dad was Southern and a military man. So we grew up saying, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And my wife and I actually, we do that with my son. He's not quite there yet. He says, yes, please, and up, please, down, please. So he uses the word please and thank you. So we feel like we're strides ahead each step of the way. He's really cute, and he tries to be as polite as possible. So we'll get to the yes or no, sir.
Yes, it changes very dramatically when they turn about, I think, 9 or 10, and, the peer influence. And so just watch out for that.
We will. We're going to enjoy this time as much as we can.
Tell me more about what led you to create IfSimply.com. How did you determine there was a need for it, first of all?
Sure. So I think one of the things I was doing for a long time, I've been in sort of the marketing space. I'm an engineer originally, but I always loved to teach, and I love to stand up and speak and educate. And one of the things I always was struggling was translating that online. So for quite a few years now, I've been helping people create online courses and content and training materials. And I found that every time we would go to build somebody's presence online, it was just so cumbersome. They just wanted something simple. They might already have a blog and they wanted to create something like a course, or, in many cases, we created bigger things like membership sites, but we found ourselves creating all these tools and plugins and connecting them all together, only to find 6 months down the road that one of the plugins changed and now our entire site is down, and I have to go back in and build it all back up. So that's kind of where I knew there was a need, because I was working with people who were creating their own course content, all my clients, and ultimately I found that I wanted them to have something that they could easily manage and do on their own. And so we just started building it for them. And then more and more people started asking, can you open it up? Is it something that I could get access to even if I'm not a client? And we said, sure, let's test it out. And I'll say we're constantly evolving, but it is amazing how far we've come. There's literally no no tech knowledge required to do any of it. So
it was a natural organic growth. There was a demand for it. People came to you and you saw a need, and then you created the site and a service out of that because you saw a need and people were actually coming to you. That's excellent. So before you created this business, let's step back for a second. What was your passion before you started this business?
It's funny for me. I've been actually driven a lot of my career through music. So I was a performer when I was young, and I was doing stage shows and rock concerts. I wanted to be the rock star, but I realized I was actually much better at the business side and the technology side. So I was building these websites early on that were helping us really get a jump on the competition. And mind you, this was back when I was sitting with this little junky computer, and these horrible little Netscape browsers that would crash every 10 minutes, just trying to understand how to write code. So I was doing all this stuff, and I actually went on to become an engineer, electrical engineer, and I found that I was always really driven by the business side and the marketing side. And so it was all about the message and information. How do you connect with people? And that I sort of wanted to replicate that feeling of being on stage and empowering, connecting with people. But I realized I wanted to do it in a business sense, and sort of, I think it's actually, the market's turned my direction where entrepreneurship is kind of like the new rock star. So that's kind of what steered me here. It's always been around marketing, pulling that information together and creating that connection, and really, how do you educate someone and get them on the same wavelength as you by taking complex things and technology, engineering, whatever the topic is, and really simplifying it down to something very basic that people can kind of absorb no matter what the level.
Yeah, it's amazing how much information is available online now. Courses are available for free through the major educational institutions in the U.S. and elsewhere, and places like Coursera.org or Coursera.com. There are so many courses available for free. It seems like information is a thing now. Information is power, and everybody wants to create an online course, but we need to know where to start. You created IfSimply to simplify creating membership sites. Tell us, for people that don't know, what is a membership site?
Sure. So a membership site is essentially, it's a password protected area where people will pay either a one-time fee or a monthly fee, much like they would a course if you do it one time, to get access to digital content. Now, it can take many forms. It's usually in the forms of video courses. So it's multiple courses in a membership site, might be put out one course per month. Or micro courses. And then also inside of there's usually a discussion area where members can interact with each other, that's actually the secret sauce of really successful clubs, is really the community or the inside that membership site that drives people to stay around and keep paying and adding value to each other. And then also an article area. So those are the three core areas. And within that article area, it's usually tutorials. It could be PDF downloads. It can be any number of things, but ultimately it's around regular content inside of a member's area that people pay to access. That's the concept of a membership site. You
have a system in place. You have people that can sign up, pay a membership fee, then and only then do they have access to your course, whatever it is, whether it's video, audio, PDF downloads, whatever that course is. And then you have private discussion groups to stay engaged with the people that have signed up. And plus more, you have lots of other features as well. And all of this, you've created a site that makes it very simple, and you don't need to know any coding in order to set up a membership site. So who is this for? Who is this targeted for? Who should be signing up to IfSimply?
Sure. So I would say it's targeted really at the blogger, podcaster, someone who's out there developing an audience and giving away content for free that's already creating something, but they may not know how to structure a course or how to monetize that content. IfSimply makes it really easy. If you already have an idea, that's great. But if you don't, a lot of people will sign up, they'll get in, and then we have a lot of free resources that guide them along the way about how to choose a topic, how to create the content. We go through screencasting and how to create video tutorials. And it's all really intended to be quick and easy. So even the content that I generate, I have a really strong conviction about get people to the end result as quickly as possible. And the only thing you should be doing is filling in the gaps, not adding a lot of content just to add content, because people won't get through it. So everything we do is really about getting in quickly And if you have a topic you're already talking about online and you're building an audience around it, then it's the perfect person to really jump in and get extreme value out of IfSimply right away.
Excellent advice. I've talked to many people in education who are creating educational courses as well as gamification, which is another big hot area when it comes to teaching. One of the things they always say is that have the end goal in mind and then assume they know nothing. So how are they going to go from knowing nothing to your end goal? You just fill in the blanks and create something that they can use. A lot of times we assume that people know something. I'm in tech. A lot of times I assume people know the basic stuff, and they don't. So you have to assume that they know nothing and then take them from there to the end goal. That's really good advice. So you have lots of different sections or different parts of IfSimply. Now, just a bird's eye view, you've given us a little bit, but you have automatic monthly billing. You have special articles that you can create inside IfSimply. And you also have free basic memberships, so people can start for free.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for us, the main thing is when you get inside, it takes all the pieces. So things that you would normally pay for separately, let's say, you'd usually buy hosting for one, a place to put your content. IfSimply obviously provides that. It provides the billing automatic. You can do it one time or monthly. It provides the ability to have also free membership sites. So we have some members who will actually open up part of the membership level to free basic memberships, and then they have a different level that charges $40 a month, or some. I mean, honestly, we have a few people that charge upwards to $500 or $600 a month. Really depends on your content, your audience, but those different membership levels allow you to put in certain content that only appears for those people that are part of that pay that amount. So you have all those pieces, which you'd usually have your website. You'd have plugins that allow you to lock the content down. You'd have a forum plugin that usually would be a little bit difficult to integrate, but it works if you're doing it yourself and building it from scratch. We have the ability to link up your Facebook group, some of the newer features that we have. And then the real draw when you get in is the video courses. So we allow you to, and we don't do hosting of video. We actually allow you to use your existing video host, embed the videos in. You can add PDFs to each video. You can add notes to each video. You can add an audio download. And we really recommend that for every course, and in our case, we say a course is a series of videos with attachments and notes below each video that step people through the process. So when you're conceptualizing a course, that's what you're talking about. It's just a series of videos that people would consume. There's usually a PDF download that they would take that's a workbook. And that's really what we push towards, is we call them actually action guides. They're the actionable steps that if somebody watched the video, they could follow along with, or if they just bypass the video, they could automatically jump into. And so the great thing is you just grab your embed code, you upload these files, and they're automatically served based on how frequently you want these to come out to your members. So if you wanted it to show up every 2 weeks or show up every month, a new course, you could have them preloaded, and then just as people join, they appear for those users. So I think those are all features that you would pay $30, sometimes more dollars a month for each of those. And then the email marketing piece is just an embedded piece that normally people would have MailChimp, Aweber, those types of things. You don't have to have those to even use ours. You can automatically notify members of new content, reach out to them from within your course, and all of that sort of integrated into one package. So the hardest thing is going in and putting in your PayPal email address and then pasting the content that you want in. And the one thing I'll say is if you get a chance, really sign up, because if you've ever used WordPress, you know that when you type in content, you see something different than what your readers will see on the other side. They see the finished product, but you see this admin panel with a lot of options and a lot of crazy stuff. Ours actually, it's completely admin free. There's no code, there's nothing. You actually just type right over the pre-populated content. We give you example content. So you actually just step through. We tell you how to craft a good title, and it's actually right there on the page. And you just type right over it with your content and hit save. And it looks exactly like what your members would see when they pay to get inside.
That sounds amazing. That simplifies the whole process. And I've seen all kinds of plugins, WP Courseware, and there's a whole bunch of other plugins, not only to try to create courses, but also to restrict content, take payments, whether it's PayPal or something else. And unless you're a techie or unless you hire somebody, it gets to be a bit of a nightmare. Not only to set it up, but also to maintain it and also make sure nothing goes wrong once it's in place. Having that offloaded and having all that managed so that it's taken care of, all you do is create content and you don't have to worry about the back end. You don't have to worry about having something up and operational. That's a big, big thing. So that sounds great. Tell us, I'm going to get a little bit more into the techie side here.
Sure.
Tell us more about the video course creation inside IfSimply. So you said you don't host the actual videos, but do you supply anything that lets you create the videos, or is that something people do offline, say using ScreenFlow or something else?
Yeah, so we actually, initially when we launched, we were developing our own tool to do video course creation. And what we found was there were so many people that were doing it already using the tools that existed that it became more cumbersome to actually build it in than it was to just allow people and teach people to use the existing tools in the market. And honestly, for me, I've been doing screencasting for a long time, and ScreenFlow is, for a Mac user, is one of the most simple and powerful things that you could really do. And for I think it's $79 or something like that, it's absurd to try to go and build or use anything else. So we've really teach people the process of using screen capture software that exists out there, whether it's Camtasia or ScreenFlow. And we really focus on the content creation process. So we'll actually step people through how to outline their course, how to craft a proper title for their course that's really going to sell. And then we teach them the tools like ScreenFlow to create the content. And a lot of times, ScreenFlow is the only paid tool that we recommend. Most tools we really use are all free. Even things like Google Drive for presentations is one of the tools that we've done a lot. So you don't even have to have something like PowerPoint to create your presentation. So we focused on that. And really from there, we recommend people, if you're using YouTube, you upload it to YouTube as unlisted, and then you can grab the embed code there. But a lot of people for our site, they use Amazon S3 or they use Vimeo or YouTube. So it was easier for us to just use that model.
Yeah, I use Google Docs a lot, and Google Slides, which is the Google version of PowerPoint, is an excellent tool. So it's all free. Using ScreenFlow, which is basically the only tool you really need to create your videos, and plus the Google Docs apps and Google Slides, you can create your course no problem. One of the things, though, that I find is that, and I think you're addressing this, is actually creating a good course, having a good title, having a good flow, making sure you have all the different components in place to make sure that it is a good course. Now, there's also the quality of the course. So the quality of the video, the quality of the audio. Do you address any of those things?
Yeah. So, for us, the tools that are available now are unbelievable in terms of especially audio quality. So coming from my background where I was doing music and really, I had these expensive mixing boards and I was spending a ton of money to create quality audio. Well, at this point, it was, 15, 20 years ago. And, what's amazing is now the power that you can get in a $99 mic in, the Blue Yeti, for example, is it's actually gone down in price, I think, since the Yeti Pro came out. But it's an amazing mic. There's even $50 mics that are USB based. And a lot of it comes down to simple technique. And we do teach this. It's proximity. So when you're speaking into the mic, it's where you hold the mic that will determine a lot of your quality. If you did want to do things like talking head videos where you can use something as simple as an iPhone and a 3-point lighting setup you can get on Amazon, or even go to Home Depot if you wanted to. I don't know what's up in your neck of the woods, but it's really simple to actually use your iPhone or smartphone with good lighting. And the Audio-Technica, I think it's the AT2020, or some other models that are lapel mics that you can actually clip on, run it over to your iPhone. And I think there's a newer version that actually plugs right into the iPhone jack without an adapter. And those things are, very simple to use, and will make incredible quality. as long as you just pay attention to really sound and lighting. Those are the two key components when you're doing anything, when you're recording video content. If you're screencasting, one of those just goes right out the window, because then it's just all about your content that you're putting together and making your PowerPoint presentation or your Google presentation. Use a really strong template with good quality images, and then it's all recorded. There's no lighting to worry about. It's very simple. And then it just comes down to a really good quality mic. So those things are all very easy to do, very inexpensive to do, and will catapult you, beyond what the average person will do.
I find that there are a lot of tools, a lot of hardware and software tools. It's very simple to pick up something and just create it. Using the right tools is key. The audio has to be good. People have to hear you. People have to be able to see you. So having something that really makes you shine and makes you look good is really important. There are some services where they actually check the course for you. So you do a test screen recording, and then they'll tell you, if this is good enough to put online. Do you do anything like that?
Originally, we had done some of that, but we don't really, as a service provider, we're not. This is a platform that really is managed by you. Those other platforms, what they're doing is really protecting their own brand. In essence, they're trying to help you for sure, but they're also, they're really trying to be a platform. For us, we're actually trying more to be a service for you, so your audience is the only one served by your content. We're not going to go try to push other people away from your content to somebody else's, and there are things behind that. I won't get into the business of that, but so we have had service like that before, and ultimately we've moved away from that a little bit as we've scaled. It's just been one of those things where we just we've grown so rapidly that we don't have the bandwidth to sort of offer those services unless it's part of a client package.
So basically, you're providing the service, you're providing the resources, you're providing the hosting, and you're also providing some templates and tools that will help you create your content. But it's really up to you. It's really up to you to create something good, market it, and so on. Do you get into any of the marketing side of things, or is that entirely up to the members to market their courses?
So we don't get into a lot of the marketing side. There's again, it's the person that we work with tends to, we'll talk about launch strategies initially, but I think the main thing is there's three parts to this when you really look at it. There's the content that you create and really creating impactful and powerful content. There's the platform that you host to deliver it, which is what we're providing on IfSimply. And then there's the marketing side. And there's a lot of people with a lot of insight in the marketing side. And I definitely do as well. Actually, I launch courses for people, and that's part of the business that I run before we even created IfSimply. So we do have some free resources there. I'll say that we focus more on the front end of the content and identifying the right content and the platform delivery. And then everything beyond that, if it's marketing, we have resources that we steer people to that really help with that and stay a lot more, I think, a lot more fresh. So we focus on the content side of things more than anything.
That sounds really good, and it gives me an idea of where IfSimply stands, just so everybody's clear. You've created your own online courses, right, within IfSimply. When you created your online courses, did you have a particular workflow, and is that built into IfSimply? So
for me, I've had, I do have a fairly specific workflow. Most of my work from course creation is really centered around my client work. So I'll tell you at least, high level how it works for me, whether I'm working with a client or not. But I'll give you the client example because I think it's something people can mimic. So the first thing I try to do is when I'm working with a client, I try to identify. So for example, if it's a blogger, I try to identify the top content on their blog, basically going through their Google Analytics to find the top pages. I'll then dig into those top pages and find the comments. So the best people who are actually going to sell a course, I'll be honest with you, are the ones who are already engaging with people because they have comments on their blog or, even social media. A lot of times I'll find that there's certain posts on their website that get more social media chatter. So we'll dig into the questions that people have. And then from there, we use that to develop the basis for what the course and the topic will be about. And we'll actually craft the title first, and we'll create a sales page before we create any content. And if you're not familiar with a sales page is essentially, it's the offer page. It's where you tell people what the course is, what they're going to get, and why they should buy. So we do all of that beforehand. And the trick really becomes, once you put that together, you start thinking about it from somebody else's perspective. You forget about yourself and what you want to say, and you focus on what they need to hear or what they need to get out of your course. So once we do that, we'll actually go ahead and put together an outline for the course. So once we've determined what the actual content is that we're going to center around, we created the sales page, we'll actually create an outline for the course. So we'll go through the process of outlining the steps. So we know from the course title what the end result is. And I'll give you an example. So I created a course with Sue Zimmerman. And Sue B. Zimmerman, she's the Instagram gal. And we did a course, the 7 steps to grow your business with Instagram. And very simple title, but it was actually really well received for a couple of reasons. One was we told people it was a business course, that they were going to grow their business. We set an expectation. The other is we told them, sort of the method, Instagram was the method that we're going to use to grow their business. And then we told them what it was going to take. So 7 steps. To people who are on the sales page, that says, oh, this is something I can do. There are 7 steps that I have to complete, and then I can achieve that end result. So once we knew that that was what we had, and we had baked in 7 steps, we actually went through and outlined those 7 steps. And I'll be honest, we picked 7 steps before we actually knew that there were 7 distinct steps. But when we went through, we would have adjusted if it didn't work out. And we outlined those steps. We created a summary with bullets. And I'm a huge fan of bullet points, so I create a Google Doc. I put my step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Underneath there, I put bullets for what the topics are I'm going to speak about. And then I go and create the presentation for each one of those, what I call modules. And so I'll create a presentation, then I'll sit down, and in my case now, a lot of the times, if it's my own course, I'll just speak into the mic over the presentation. And a huge trick is don't put a lot of words on a slide. Use images, and that works great for webinars too. Use more images and graphics as you can, because then you won't feel like you have to say something or you're stumbling just reading slides. So that's sort of one quick tip to put in there. And so once I've recorded those, or in the case when working with Sue, we did a webinar style interview where I asked her the questions and I made sure we hit on all the points. I'll go back and I'll edit the videos down using ScreenFlow. And mind you, I've recorded all these with voiceovers into my mic using ScreenFlow. I'll then go and edit those down, add an intro, add an outro, and then I'll take those videos, upload them to YouTube, unlisted, and then embed those into the IfSimply course. And then I take the outline that I have and I create the action guide in a PDF format. And so this is actually some secret sauce, because this is actually how I've landed some really big clients that I'm working with right now. I can't really say the names until we launch, but essentially this action guide is one workbook for the entire course that if somebody wanted to, they could just go through this workbook and get all the value out of it. So it gives examples of each step, and it tells them, write down these 5 things that you're going to do with this strategy. Write the 2 things that you're going to do about this topic. So each step it takes you through, it tells you what to do. And if you don't complete it, you don't move on to the next step. And then it has links to some additional resources. But that one PDF workbook gets the most downloads of anything we've done in that course with Sue or any other course that we work with. The PDFs are really what people come back to us and say, this is huge. I don't have to wade through all the videos and then take notes to get this value. I can follow along to the videos on the topics I don't understand, and then I can just use the PDF guide to get quick value and jump to the end as quick as possible. So we do all that, upload it to IfSimply, and then we go ahead and click live and publish it. And we generally will do some sort of pre-marketing activities, and that's a whole nother discussion. But we'll usually launch with a webinar and have a specific time that the course is open for first registration.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of work. Yeah, but once the course is there and it's in place, it's just a matter of marketing it, and it's available to anybody. Now, if somebody's coming to the site to sign up, do they see IfSimply.com, or can you have your own domain name?
Yeah, so a lot of people, what we do is the domain piece we haven't put into IfSimply directly, but we have a lot of customers who will actually create their own custom domain using HostMonster or GoDaddy or whatever the service is that they use for their main website, and then they will they'll just point that at the link to their club, we call them, their membership site or their club on IfSimply.com. And so it appears when somebody clicks the link, they go directly to IfSimply, but it's actually just a subdomain on our website.
But what they end up actually seeing is not their domain, though.
Correct.
In terms of a user experience, when a user comes and sees a course, do they see one site or do they see all the courses? Do they see just one specific course?
They see just your stuff. So they see only your one specific course that you link them to. So if you were to create a course or your membership site, they're brought to a landing page which has, is a sales page. So it has the course information on it, tells them why they want to buy, and it gives them a buy button to basically click to. And then it's not going to show them a bunch of other people's courses or other content like you would on Coursera or Udemy or one of those other platforms. This is sort of think of this as if you were using WordPress to host your own club, your own membership site. It's sort of the same sort of thing if you're using IfSimply. It's for your specific content only.
That brings me to another question. What platform did you use in the back end? It's not WordPress? Is it WordPress or is it something else?
Oh, no. It's actually the only way we can do some of the things we can do is our own custom code. And it was developed by my co-founder, who is brilliant. He used to do software architecture for the government, top secret stuff that I guess I'm not supposed to talk about. But he used Ruby on Rails, which is the programming language on the back end. So we have our own custom coded site.
I've heard of Ruby on Rails. I haven't actually used it myself, but I've worked with people that have used it. And it does simplify the coding process. So you have built-in players in the actual platform. So somebody comes and they want to take a course. There are built-in players like within the system. So is this mobile friendly and you can access them on your tablet or your phone or anywhere?
Yes. So absolutely. It's we don't have a custom app or anything like that, but it is mobile friendly, and all of the players will work on any type of tablet. So iPhone, Android, Kindle Fire, doesn't really matter. The interesting thing you say about that, though, is, with a lot of custom coded sites that people create for themselves, the mistake they make is they use YouTube's native player if they're embedding YouTube videos, which does a couple things. If you don't set it up properly, it'll show other videos at the end of yours, which steers people off of your special private members area. The other thing it does is it will, if you double click, it'll take you to YouTube if you haven't disabled that. So again, another way people, when they're watching your video, you want them to be in your members area and you want them to stay engaged with that content. You don't want them to go off other places. So with our custom player, we actually have the ability to do a lot more. We can keep all those things from happening first and foremost, but then we also have the ability to track engagement of the video content, similar to how a learning management system might. And then we're developing features where it can actually re-engage that person and give you analytics based on video views.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because when you place a YouTube video on your site, not only without a proper coding in place, not only does it show other related content at the end of the video, but a lot of times it's not very mobile friendly. What the code that YouTube gives you is not really mobile friendly. The video that you place on your site may not look as nice on a mobile, say a phone. So I think they use an iframe to show the content. What I use a tool called Thrive Content Builder, which gets rid of that. It gets rid of the related videos at the end. It gets rid of the titles and this and that and whatever. And it's also lets you put it into a mobile-friendly content box. But that's another thing. I can put that in the show notes as well. So that's really good. Like, you brought up an interesting point, which is that you keep track of stats. Tell me more about the stats side of things.
Yeah, so there's interesting things that you can do, and I'll say we're in our infancy on this side of things. But ultimately, what the goal is to be able to make sure users make it through your content and actually consume the content. Because if they don't consume the content, they're not going to come back and buy the next course, or they're not going to promote you to other people and speak about the results that they achieved because they didn't actually use your content. And in the day and age we live in, where people are just, they'll make a purchase because at the time they want it, but then they never really engage with it, you're kind of stuck. And one of the things we do at IfSimply is we use analytics to re-engage people and make sure that they are fully aware and getting value from the course content that you provided. So things like, did they actually, when was their last login to the site, and just ping them and try to get them back into your members area. The other is video. How do you actually make sure that they're making it through your video content and consuming it so that they're actually putting it to use? And when you have a video player that's custom, you can actually track view times. And when people drop off, you can actually ping them with emails, this is what we're building, to re-engage them automatically, so that you, as the member, the owner of that membership site, you wouldn't be able to do this on your own. You'd not know where people are dropping off. If you did, you'd have to do it manually for each and every person anyway and try to get them back. So we try to hook people back in, tell them that we see you didn't make it all the way through to this video, and we just pull in your video name or the course name and some pre-populated content to just get them back there. So those are ways we can use the data. For you, the way you can use the data is to be able to understand where are people dropping off. Is the content too dry? Is one video halfway through just too long? And we actually try to preempt a lot of that by giving people rules of thumb. We have a rule of thumb that honestly, videos with actionable content should not be 30 minutes to an hour. They should be 10 to 15 minutes tops for each video. And if it's longer than that, it should be broken up into smaller sub-segments or topics. Otherwise, you're going to lose people and not really going to engage with that content because there's going to be too much to consume or to wade through to get the value. So that's a sort of rule of thumb and something that I preach on every stage that I stand on.
That's a really, really interesting point there, because if you do have a long video and there's key things in that video that you want to remember, but then you end up watching the whole video and then you got to figure out, okay, what point was that key point that I wanted to remember? You have to kind of wade back through that long video. So if you have a shorter video, concise video, they can just go back to that shorter video and just watch that couple of minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it is again to go over that. That's a really good point. And keeping those stats, that's really interesting as well, because if people are dropping off, say 25% through the course, and then they're asking for their money back, that's not good. So you have to try to see where you're losing people. Maybe the course is too long, or maybe the content isn't right, or maybe it's not at the right level. How do you handle the payment? I mean, you mentioned PayPal. You take PayPal payments, but also somebody created a course and they want to give a 30-day money-back guarantee. Is that all handled within the system?
Well, it's actually managed partly through the system. So let's say the actual lockdown of content is done through the system. So if you were to go and you wanted to refund somebody their money, you would actually do that through PayPal to initiate that transaction. But it sends back a token to us that says, hey, this person is no longer valid. They're not current on their payments, and we would actually lock down the content. So so you would get some basic ability from within IfSimply to know whether they're still an active member or not, and being refunded. But they wouldn't be able to access your content, which some of the tools, and I'll say from past experience, some of the tools I've used on WordPress, I've struggled with just that feature alone, because, you go through and then you have to manually take people off when they ask for a refund and all of that, and it gets pretty cumbersome. So we're building that out. I'll say that we have surprisingly low refund rates that people receive. And I'll say, I think in general, there's this fear about extending refunds, and you think you're going to have this huge refund rate. And the reality is, if you're putting in the legwork to create good content, the refunds are usually there because, oh, I accidentally purchased or I did something. They're not necessarily people going in, consuming content and then refunding, which is, I think, everybody's fear is, if I give them too long of a window, they're going to just consume all the content and then, they're going to ask for their money back. But we don't see that very often. So we haven't put a lot of resources behind developing hugely robust feature set inside of IfSimply. We've relied on PayPal for a lot of that.
I think the other key point is, in terms of refunds, is if you price your course correctly, you have less chance of having a lot of people refund or want a refund. If you price your course at $999 versus $97, there's probably going to be less chance that people are going to back out and say, I want my money back at $97. Pricing is a key thing. I'm not sure if you provide any tips on that or if that's just entirely up to you as a course creator. You have to figure that out based on other courses that are offering similar content.
Yeah, I would say, this is highly dependent on the individual scenario, but I'll say this. The price is usually more than what people think. We tend to undersell ourselves. We think that, the bar that you should set should be, lower because I can't possibly give that amount of value. But, everybody in the sort of outside the education space, there's this mantra that 10 times the value. If you can give 10 times the value, you should be able to charge that price. So even if that's $1,000, if you can help somebody make $10,000 from that, and that's an extreme example, then that absolutely warrants that $1,000 price point. But the other thing I'll say is, when you're competing on a site like Coursera or Udemy, your pricing strategy is going to be different than if you're selling to your distinct audience that you've developed off social media platforms, or you developed ideally an email list. Those people are not necessarily going to compare you to similar things out there in the market on the topic you're teaching. They're not even looking at them because they're bought into you. And so your ideal scenario is, even if you're using a site like Udemy or Coursera, find a way to get those users, and they don't want you to do this, but find the way to get those users that really love you to go and engage with you somewhere else. Social media, somehow get them on an email list. And then you sort of created this term, I don't know if you've heard, blue ocean. You've created your own blue ocean because now you've got this person on your platform where you feel comfortable in your email list. And then when you launch, your pricing strategy is really dependent on how much value you think you're bringing, not how much the other guy's charging. And so there's sort of some fundamental distinctions. If you're choosing a platform, you want to stay competitive with those on the platform, but also you want to make sure that you're not the same exact price point. People are going to judge you based on the value you provide. If everybody's charging, $17, that's a pretty low price point. If if you can come in at 47 and really provide value, that's really the ideal scenario. So, or 47 to 97, whatever the threshold is, it really depends on the content.
I think you touched on a few points that are interesting, and I could talk about those for a while, but kind of limited here in time. But in terms of Udemy, they have a certain pyramid system where if you bring in the customer or the person taking your course, you get more money for that person that is taking your course. But if they bring in the student to take your course, you'll get a lot less money. If you have your own platform and you're bringing the people in, you stand more of a chance of earning more income from your course, even though the price may be the same, or maybe even a little bit lower. You may end up getting more money. Looking back, what's the one tool that you think that's key to anybody creating a course?
Honestly, I think the one tool that I use, and we've talked about it already, I think the most valuable tool is definitely ScreenFlow, or a good screen capture, software from a tool course content creation perspective. The other thing I'll say that it's not so much a tool, but a method, is that if you're struggling to create your first course, or you're struggling to create one that you feel is as successful as you want it to be, try to actually partner with somebody else who has complementary fan base or users, by checking their social media, or maybe they have a blog that's similar to yours, and they're at a similar level, or ideally even a little bit higher level than you, meaning they get even more visitors to their website. And what you'll find is, if you partner with that person, you can do just a simple webinar style training. And that training will actually give you the confidence. And if the quality is actually good enough, meaning recording quality, you can actually repurpose that content into a course. As long as you have that in mind, I don't feel like that's a cheat. I feel like that's actually a really good strategy. So I'd say the method is find somebody complimentary, make one person the expert and the other person the interviewer. And just leverage that, and have a conversation about the topic where it's as if that expert is teaching you and you're interviewing them just like you would on a webinar or a podcast, for example. And that will get you through all these roadblocks because there's accountability with that partner. They can be the content expert if you're not, if you don't feel comfortable yet. And as long as you go in with that, sort of you have a joint venture, let's say, where you're going to share profits and you deal with that. That's actually a simpler conversation than most people think. You'll actually find that people will welcome that experience and you'll get a lot better content, higher quality in a shorter amount of time.
I know a lot of people actually that repurpose content, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually a good strategy because you're providing value. You provided value in a live session, and now you can provide that same value to other people. That's good. That's a good strategy. Take a few minutes now and offer your best, most practical advice to anyone thinking of creating their first online course or training.
I think the most impactful thing you can do is really to start up by asking just sort of one question, and it's actually more of a statement. And I always tell people to start here. And you start with saying, I am a blank and I help people blank. And you fill in those blanks. So for example, people will struggle to find a topic and they'll go into paralysis mode to sort of before they even get started. And just by saying, I am, and it could be expert in this topic or that topic, and I help people, and you put whatever the goal is that you help people achieve, that's going to automatically shift your mentality, and it's going to tell you what you need to do. So even if you've not created any content around that yet, just by saying you're an expert in something and defining how you're helping people and even who you're helping, that's going to actually lay the groundwork for you to just start outlining a course. And just start by putting an Evernote doc together and creating those bullet points of what the topic is that you're gonna teach. And I think if you go through that, that statement process and outlining, it becomes a lot clearer. And then obviously, if you don't feel like you know the process yet, go to something. You can sign up on IfSimply for free, and you can get access to the course content in our membership site Secrets Club. That'll actually teach you this whole process, or you can do it on any of those other major sites. The content exists out there, but just sit down and think of it more as just a presentation. If you've ever lived in the corporate world, you put an outline together, start putting the slides together piece by piece, and then it's a presentation. At the end of the day, an online course is just really presentation in a slightly different format. So I'd say go through that process of outlining and then creating a presentation, and then get your tool, ScreenFlow, and just go through it a few times. It doesn't have to be amazing to start with. It just has to be something that the content is sound and it's something that you feel like, achieves a specific outcome for that person. And you can feel comfortable and do it 5, 6, 7 times until you feel like you have something of quality that you can sell. So I'd say it's kind of just understanding the process and then just doing it.
Yeah, it's always hard the first time. It becomes easier the second time and third time and fourth time, and it's just a matter of getting started. So Keith, I can spend hours talking to you and drilling you for more information, but I want to thank you so much for being on the show and sharing such valuable information to help others create their online course and talking about IfSimply, which is an awesome platform. From what you've told us, all the features that it has, and it's free to start. It sounds great. So where can people reach you online?
So I'm all over the place, but I think my primary place that I like people to connect is actually if you're on Instagram. It's a great place to find me. Just type in IfSimply, IfSimply, and I post tips on there regularly about how to create course content or digital products. So I make these sort of micro blog posts on there. And then also, if you go to a URL that I set up called myproductgift.com, it'll actually it'll have a free set of tools that you'll be directed to that you can go ahead and start digging in more, and feel free to my contact info's in there. And anytime anybody wants to email me, I love getting email. I try my best to stay on top of it, but I love hearing from individuals who are kind of going through it. So I'm accessible.
If you enjoyed this episode, just subscribe to the podcast and future episodes will be downloaded automatically for you. Check out the show notes at educationhackers.com to get links to resources we talked about in this episode. See you next time.